What's up YouTube? So today I want to talk about a plugin called Voxengo PHA-979. So I've been meaning to look into this plugin for quite a while. Quite a few commenters have suggested me having a look at it because it deals with a couple of things that I've spoken about quite a few times on my channel. And it just so happened that Voxengo decided to extend support for my channel and sponsor this video. So Voxengo are currently doing a sale for 15% off most of their plugins. I'm not sure how long it will last, but that being said, is they also do these kind of random flash sales. You know, I just added this one, Voxengo PHA-979 to my cart, and you can see that it's given me like a flash discount. So like I said, I'm not sure how long these sales are going to be on for, but you can see that this particular plugin usually retails for about $60, but you can grab it, or I could possibly grab it now for like just under $40. So it may seem like a little bit expensive when you just look at it. It seems quite simple, but it does something particularly well that I'm sure most of you guys struggle with, particularly if you're making dance music. You know, it's kind of like one of those bass fixing tools. But anyway, let's get into it, and I want to discuss a couple of the use cases. So I've got this project here that I've been working on. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you probably do know this project. If not, and you want to know how some of the sounds were made, just go back a couple of videos and you'll see. It's my kind of track from scratch using Serum thing. Anyway, I want to show you guys one thing that this plugin is particularly good at. So it's called PHA-979. It's essentially a phase correction tool. So most of the time when I've discussed phase correction in the past, I've only really covered the delay aspect of it because I hadn't really found a plugin yet that could potentially rotate the phase like the Voxengo PHA-979. I quickly want to show you guys a kind of A-B comparison of what it's doing to this bass line in this track. I also want to pull up a oscilloscope so you guys can see exactly what's going on here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the track and then I'm going to turn it on and off, and you guys can kind of see what's happening here in the low end. So, you know, unless you're on a really good system, that difference might be pretty subtle. But, you know, on bigger systems, it's pretty drastic. You know, without the plugin, the bass kind of felt a little bit muddy. It felt like it was kind of overlapping with the kick a little bit. And you could actually see that in the waveform. As the kind of kick rolled off, there was this kind of irregularity as the first bass note hit. You know, what I tried to do with the plugin is kind of clean up that curve between that first bass note and the actual kick sound. So with that in mind, let's have a look at the reference again. So as you can see here, my idea was to kind of create this more sine wave looking curve as the first bass note hits, to kind of create more of a natural movement between the kick and the bass, if that makes sense. So what I want to do here is I want to disable the plugin, and I'm going to go through the process of, you know, how I came about those settings when we just open the plugin as new by default. So let's just pop in another instance over here. As you can see, I've kind of bypassed the original one, and we're going to kind of recreate the sound that I had there from scratch. I also want to discuss a couple of the parameters that the plugin has. Straight off the bat, it's got an A-B thing, which I always love in plugins. Cubase actually has it kind of built in, but that being said, is a lot of other DAWs don't have that, and the ability to create kind of like two settings and check which one sounds best, or create one and then jump back to default quickly. You know, these kinds of things are invaluable to workflow, in my opinion. Being able to kind of make sure that you're always making the sound better at the same time as, you know, not being too worried about being too destructive, if that makes sense. So anyway, let's pull up this scope again over here. So now we can have a look at this scope live while I'm tweaking these parameters. So keep in mind that this plugin is on the bass channel, not on the kick channel. So what I'm essentially trying to do is rotate the phase of the bass so that it lines up perfectly with the kick. Like I said in previous examples, I generally had done this by just delaying the signal ever so slightly. So what I want to do here is, let's just have a look at some of these output parameters here. So we've got force mono, left and right swap, and mono mix. So what these are doing is mono mix is basically taking all the settings that you have in the plugin, and at the final stage it's mixing them to mono. So if you have, like for example, you delay the left slightly to the right, what it's going to do is it's going to create like an audible effect and then mix them to mono, if that makes sense. So force mono basically takes out the right parameter and only gives you mono parameters to tweak. So with something like a bass, if I don't have a stereo layer or something like that on there, I will generally go with force mono. That being said, if I've got a stereo layer, it's essential to make sure that I'm applying these to the same settings. Anyway, that being said, let's have a look at force mono. And what I'd previously done is, in previous examples when I wanted to correct the phase, I was just delaying the signal either backwards in time to kind of line it up a little bit better like this, or forwards in time. And obviously the problem with this is it changes the groove ever so slightly because you're pushing these bass notes on and off the grid ever so slightly. I mean, like, that amount of milliseconds is totally inaudible to the ear, but it does kind of change the groove a little bit. I would say neither is good nor bad, but having all of the tools at your disposal to be able to choose what you think suits the best is, in my opinion, invaluable. And that's why I think, again, having this A/B system here is so cool, because we can, for example, say, like, let's try just the delay, and see how this works. I think that's kind of like as natural as we're probably going to get it. And then let's jump to B, and let's try correct it using just this phase setting here. So let's go force mono, and let's try rotate this. So as you can see, it's kind of retaining the transient dynamics of the sound, but it's just rotating the kind of sine wave, or where the sine wave is sitting in that sound. So it's pretty interesting. So we've got the ability to rotate it by 90 degrees and minus 90 degrees, but we can go into this opposite quadrant by hitting L180, and then you've got more control that way. So let's do something like that. And let's compare these two, the audible difference between these two. I think they both sound good, but it feels like, the delay is still a little bit muddy, whereas, this kind of phase rotation effect, it's a little bit too drastic, if that makes sense. What I want to do is, let's click this copy B to A, and now this is going to initialize, both the settings are going to be the same. And we can go in and we can start fine-tuning the delay as well as the phase. And then, if we go too drastic, we can always jump to B. We want to try to get the best of both worlds. Cool. I think that's sounding good enough for now. So let's say, for example, we have some stereo in this bass. How would I go about getting this patch more stereo compatible? So what I would do is then press A to B, just so that we've got a kind of fallback in case we, change a setting that we don't want to. Then we can jump over to B, and I want to turn force mono off, and then I want to go ahead and I want to change these parameters to the exact same as the other side is. So let's say minus 3.586, and then let's put here minus 10.5. 0.5, and remember that we also swapped this into the opposite quadrant. So let's have a listen. This should be exactly the same audio as our forced mono, but now, if we do have a stereo bass, then we have the ability to now mix the sides, pan it, and that kind of thing. Awesome. So there are also some more advanced settings. You've got a delay time calculator over here, and you've also got a phase correlation meter over here. So as you can see, it basically gives you the phase correlation across the frequency spectrum. I'm just going to change one of these parameters, and you'll quickly see the phase correlation kind of go out of whack. Check that out. So this is a nice way of being able to double check, how close you are to perfect phase. So obviously below this line is anti-phase and 1 is full phase. So let's just go undo. There we go. So that's looking good again. Awesome plugin. Very, very simple, very, very easy to use, but it does that thing that a lot of us dance music producers kind of need for our low end, especially if you're using samples and that kind of thing. Just makes life a lot easier because you're not synthesizing the stuff. Even if you are synthesizing it, sometimes when you're changing the phase on the actual synthesizer, it can vastly affect the transient of the sound. Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. A big thanks to Voxengo for sponsoring this video. And yeah, as you guys know, I don't let these kinds of things get in the way of my opinions. I've been using Voxengo stuff forever. In fact, if you have a look at the top right hand side of my screen here, I've got a Voxengo plugin loaded that I literally use for my spectrum analysis, and being able to kind of get a reference of a sound and recreate that. The Voxengo Curve EQ has been part of my workflow for many years now. So yeah, I do use the company's products religiously, and I have been looking at getting into PHA-979 for a while now. A lot of guys have been recommending it, and since I've used it, I'm going to start recommending it too. So definitely check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and see you guys next time. Cheers.